Hey guys, I am so excited to be here with you today and talk about a subject matter that I'm incredibly passionate about. And I hope you are too. And if you're not perhaps already, perhaps you'll be a little bit more intrigued after our conversation. Um, what we're going to be talking about is really self-care and investing in ourselves. And it's something that I learned a really long time ago, that this was really something that was valuable. And the impact in my life, as well as the ripple effect of actually having a self-care practice and choosing to invest in myself, how that rippled out into everybody's lives around me. And then, of course, the relationships between me and those people as well, and my experiences and so on. So this was something that I learned a really long time ago. But just when you think you have it all figured out, right, life happens. So my name is Jennifer Robinson-Romkey, and I have been on quite an interesting journey, as we all have. I want you to know that I'm probably no different than many of you, maybe all of you, right? I am perfectly imperfect. I have over time learned to love myself and be kind to myself a little bit more all the time. But I want you to know that I'm a work in progress. I'm on this journey, but I recognize I'm not at the end of my journey until I'm in the ground, right? So I've got lots more work to do. But I've been doing this work and I've been committed to doing this work for a really, really long time. And it has been incredible. And I say it's like a game changer. But it's really challenging sometimes to know how to navigate this. And I'm here to share a little bit about my story so that you guys can get to know me a little bit. And again, work in progress, but it isn't about having all the answers, right? It's about really knowing how to navigate finding those answers and learning how to apply them into your life and tweaking it and that kind of stuff to really figure out, how do I do this? How do I make the changes that I want to make to create the life I want to have? And I can tell you that as a kid, I was somebody who I was born more of a free spirit. I think I danced most of my childhood. If it wasn't dancing, it was gymnastics. And, you totally believe you could do just about anything, right? That wonderful childlike curiosity and just zest for life. And that was very much me. And yet, somewhere between family relationships, school experiencing, bullying, you name it, right? The gamut. Life sort of has a way of putting us in a box. Now, I was the kid who was like super resistant to the box. And yet, funny enough, as an adult, I found myself with a lot of inside the box thinking, a lot of limiting beliefs. And I had become, I went from this free spirit to this really closed-minded, closed-hearted, um, skeptical as all heck. All these things kind of life had put me here. And so as much as I was constantly resisting that inside the box, I found myself inside the box. And so, I remember learning somewhere along the way that you can only feel as much joy as you are willing to feel pain. And I'm like, I didn't necessarily like the sound of that in the beginning, but it wasn't that you have to go through tremendous pain, but whatever it is you're feeling, you have to feel it and you have to work your way through it to be able to get to the other side. And they say, you can't just dismiss stuff, you can't drive it down, you can't ignore it, because whatever's happening to you is happening to you for a reason. It's not happening to you, it's happening for you. This is your life. You only get one go. And all of the things that are happening are provoking you to tell you what you love, what you don't love, what irritates you, what, gives you joy, where you find your bliss. You just know, like you have inner feelings that tell you that I'm on the right track or I'm on the wrong track or, whatever. And we oftentimes life kind of takes us away from listening to our gut. And I really want to encourage you guys to get back to listening to your gut, not your logical mind that will talk you out of things based on habitual thoughts and actions from the past, because your history doesn't have to dictate your future. I want you to know that today's a new day. Right now is a new minute. You get to make new choices, right? Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. And don't wait for other people to get it, for you to get what you need, right? You can have the life you want. You can have a life that feels the way you want it to, that can look the way you want it to. It's just a matter of you becoming the person that can attract that life, right? We don't get what we want, we get what we need, right? And they say we don't necessarily get what we need, we get what we are. We are literally the common denominator to our life, right? We are creating our experience, not by the events and the people, but the way that we respond or react and sort of internalize, because we give meaning to all of these things. It's us that plays the greater part of the solution, right? Oftentimes when we're kind of coming from a place of victimhood, right? We blame other people, we complain about stuff, we justify why we made whatever decisions we made, but that doesn't change anything, right? That keeps us stuck. And I really want to encourage people to don't be stuck anymore. Life can be fantastic. Oh, you're still going to have issues, right? Life's still going to happen. It's not about what happens. It's how you respond to it, right? And when you come to a place where you understand things are happening for you, and instead of getting caught up in the fray and the drama, you start to say, well, what's in here for me? What can I learn? How can I get better? And in my personal experience over 15 years at least of actively doing self-care and investing in myself. And before that, lots of information, but I wasn't applying it. So when I'm saying 15 years of self-care, investing in myself, and actually actively playing with what I was learning made all the difference. And I know it can for you too. So let me just give you a couple examples. Now, something that I really love is the Wheel of Life. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, or if you can go to Google Images or whatever, and you can pull up just an image. I don't even know if I can get the camera to see it without all that light. Really can't. My gosh, the light. Does that come in any better? It does not. Okay, give up. Flexibility, roll with it. Okay, so the Wheel of Life anyway, it's a circle basically broke into 8 pieces of pie, okay? And I'm just gonna read them to you. So career, finance, personal growth, health, family, relationships, social life, and attitude or mindset. So there's lots of wheels of life, and you can go through and sort of look at those. But what's interesting is each piece of the pie, you can basically imagine having a graph sort of between 0 or 1, whatever, to 10. So 1 or 0 being not very good, right? Not feeling very good in this area of my life, to 10 be, I feel fantastic in this area of my life, like I'm owning it. And I want, if you go around that Wheel of Life and you sort of rate where you're at, then you can kind of look at where it is we might like to expand ourselves, right? To become more aware, to develop and expand our perspective of what could really be going on, and how could I really, what could I do differently to make this play out differently? And that's basically the process. For me, I'm just going to give you a couple examples of these areas of where I really applied a lot of these skill sets, mindsets, whatever, and played with it and allowed myself to develop over years, right? I mean, say 15 years. This isn't something you flick a light switch and everything changes. But as soon as you decide to do this work, then it's like a light switch gets flicked, and you're just like, okay, well, this is my new standard for myself, that I'm going to suspend that judgment. I'm not going to get in the fray. I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to get some new tools for my toolbox and see if I can navigate this differently. When you take responsibility for that and decide that I'm in, then you're in, right? And then you're on the journey. And that's what it's all about. And then connecting with a like-minded community that can support you in that, because sometimes the people that are closest to us really like us the way we have been. So oftentimes we make some changes and they don't really like it. So sometimes we're not feeling very supported by the people that we love the most or in our lives the most. So it's really important to have that community that can support you as you navigate that new, landscape. And until you start to see some little mini successes, which builds up this incredible sense of self-confidence and trust that if you just do it until, you'll figure it out. Because I truly believe we all have all the answers we need. It's just we don't necessarily access them, right? Because we typically live our lives by default, right? Default thinking, default beliefs that we've had put, pre-programmed as a child, that you just don't even dispute it. You just, boom, we react. You know what I mean? Like we're constantly, like you got an answer for that. And then you got a reaction for that. And, life's happening and you're reacting so quickly that you can't intelligently respond. There has to be a little bit of a gap in there. And in the beginning, it seems like it takes a long time to figure it all out. But then after some practice, it's kind of like riding a bike, right? You go from getting up on the bike and falling over to eventually having incredible balance in your life and navigating life really, really well. So, couple things. I'll touch on relationships right off the bat. Okay, so million relationships I've had in my lifetime, and trust me when I say to you, some have not been so great, but they were preparing me for the great relationships, the potentially great relationships. And I am the better part of my own experience. So, I've been married for almost 25 years. And what's kind of neat is we still love each other. But what I really am excited about is we like each other. We actually still really like each other. Now, I want you to know that that's been work. There's, ebbs and flows all the time, as any long-term relationship is going to do, right? We have two totally different careers. We come from two totally different styles of families and parenting and all that kind of stuff. And to bring that together and to merge that, to actually have a relationship where people respect each other, lift each other up, encourage each other to continue to grow, and not just grow individually, but grow together. That communication that's needed to navigate all of that, it takes some serious investment in yourself and deciding that the relationship is worth the investment as well. So just, that alone shows, I know for myself, and I could go on and on, I could totally make this a long story, but to know that that evolution happened. And I know a lot of people behind closed doors aren't all that happy. And I am really, really grateful, really grateful. I feel incredibly blessed that I guess somewhere along the way, I continued to get over myself. So much as like, I remember how many years of marriage were we in, and I was like losing my mind over my husband, the way he wiped off a countertop or the way he made a bed or whatever. And at some point you're just like, you got to lay down all these little things. And I decided to be the one that changed, and that changed my experience. And therefore, that helped to impact a change of the relationship, which was, it's been a fun journey. Not always fun, trust me, but fun in the grand scheme of things. And as an entrepreneur, we don't typically take the short view of like in the moment, because there's lots of in the moments that you're like, this is not very great, but the grand scheme of things, right? That it is really wonderful. On my journey to becoming a mom, I had 2 miscarriages and I have 1 incredible son who's soon going to be 19. And to really help navigate all those stages of development, for anybody that's a parent out there, you know what I'm talking about. Or I guess you've been parented probably by someone else. Like, we change so much, and children change so much, and to constantly be navigating and pivoting and, trying to put some new tools in the toolbox to really do that well. And sometimes it's really challenging to know if you're doing it well in the moment, trust me. And I always say, I'll pay for the therapy, because I kid, at the end of the day, we're all doing the best we can with what we have to work with. The thing is we can constantly be adding what we have to work with, right? We can constantly be growing ourselves, so it can constantly expand and get better. So in that, here I have now the ability to look at our son and our relationship and to recognize how well we've done in the grand scheme of things, right? There's like probably some micro moments that not so great. That's life, right? Again, everything is balanced. It's not about being perfect. No highlight reel here. Trust me, if you want the longer story, I could break down a lot of bite-sized pieces of life. But to see now an adult who is navigating life well, the fact that, you know, he went from being bullied as a kid to learning how to get to the place where when somebody said or did something, it was like water off a duck's back, to then navigating, you know, to the point where he was helping other people with that stuff, to know how to navigate that, and to like pretty cool. And to see him go through the 2020, right, the pandemic, and to graduate high school, and to just like so easily transition through all of that. I think I transitioned harder than he did because you have such an idea of what it's going to be and what you hope it to be for your child or whatever, and for graduation and all that kind of stuff. And it didn't end up being that, but it was so beautiful because we weren't fighting the tide. And I spent so much of my life resisting what was, and instead now embracing what is, and just allowing life to happen a little bit more, because I don't have to control everything, because I can handle whatever comes my way. And again, that was developed over time. I didn't have that trust and faith early on, trust me. But when I think about personal development, mindset, attitude, feeling connected, that kind of stuff, what kind of comes to my mind right off the bat of where I've done probably the most work there, or a great example, I guess I can share, is I think I sort of alluded to this a little bit before, but I spent a lifetime accepting other people's thoughts of me or my family or, you know, whatever. And I took all of that on. I went in that box, I guess, to some degree. As much as I resisted the box, those limiting beliefs were imposed on me and I accepted them. I somehow, I guess, thought of them as being accurate views of who I was, and then I was living my life based on those limiting beliefs, which is sad to say, but I think it's pretty normal, right? Um, and that would change. And I can't even tell you how incredibly grateful I am, because I was offered an opportunity to look at, funny enough, a business. I was a flat out no, talk to the hand, Charlie Brown's teacher. I heard nothing. I was completely resistant in that moment. This was like the old me soon going to meet the new me. And it was about a month or so that kind of the transition of sort of from old me to new me, or the beginning. But I guess I had to have that. I guess that's who I was at the time. And I had to have this opportunity of feeling this like real resistance to something I didn't even know anything about. But I was like, no, not interested whatsoever. Don't even want the information. And that just was like the epitome of me showing the world who I was at that time. I didn't trust myself at all to make an educated decision, that I could hear something and still say no. Like, this is who I had become. I didn't like it. And, you know, it's funny because I guess it just planted a seed, and it started to kind of stick with me. I guess somewhere in my thinking, it stuck with me. And then I remember sitting in the living room and I was sort of like, I don't know, reflecting or having just a moment of whatever, because I didn't meditate back then or anything like that. So I don't know exactly what I was doing, but I was thinking about stuff, as we all kind of do from time to time. I was thinking, the wheels were turning. And I remember thinking, there's got to be more to life than this. And it's funny, at the time, I could say to you, I was happily married, had a fantastic son. We'd just built our home not by very long. We built the home that we wanted, lived on beautiful property. My career was going well. We're paying our bills, like, you know, and beyond. Like, we were in a pretty good place, and putting money into savings, like all the things seemed to be in place. And yet here, this little voice was saying to me, there's got to be more to life than this. So I thought I needed marriage counseling. So here we go back in the time of, relationships. It's a work in progress. And it's funny, we went and my husband humored me. He was not really, let's say, open to that. I very much am open to counseling. I think it's brilliant. I tend to think out loud, and sometimes it's nice to talk to somebody that is outside, that's not biased, that doesn't need to know, they're not going to take my story anywhere, like it just doesn't matter. But I like to talk things out sometimes, and this was an opportunity just to go in. And so I had one visit, and then we had a couples visit. And I tell you, we were about a half hour into the couples visit, and I was just like, yeah, you can go home. It's me. It wasn't something we needed as a relationship. It was, I had a sense of there was more. And what it was is there's more to me. I had more to offer the universe or my life than I was tapping into. I wasn't really living up to my potential. I have so much more to give. And I had no idea how I would do that with the time constraints of working a job, all these kinds of things. I just didn't realize that that was even an option, that I could tap into more of who I was and find more fulfillment and meaning in the things that I do. Needless to say, I'm really grateful that at some point I got over myself and I took a look at this business thing that literally changed everything, because so much of it has been about personal development, obviously some professional development as well, but I've never been in a career, and I was a registered massage therapist for like a decade, and I've never been in any career where they focus on personal development and this like self-education and truly investing in yourself, becoming a better version of who you are, not changing who you are, but it certainly will change who you are. I mean, if you've ever said, my gosh, I never thought of it that way, right? That's when we change who we are. We change our reality. We change our perspective. And when we change our perspective, everything tends to change from there, right? So this ended up being an incredible gift to my life, to my family's life, and to many lives around me, because I decided to say yes to something I had no idea what I was doing, what I was getting into, or anything like that. But I took the risk in myself because honestly, I was worth it. I was spending a lot of time and energy and resources on everything else, right? And it was time to actually turn the lens inward and really fix some of those things that we sort of pick up along those limiting beliefs and start sort of, here we are in the spirit of the season of fall, blessing and releasing the leaves. This was blessing and releasing a lot of limiting beliefs. And it really sort of released the brakes on me living a smaller life. And I truly believe that we have so much more to give. And if you've ever had that inkling or that idea, or you kind of have that inner knowing, don't resist it. Like lean into that, get curious. It's a journey for sure, but it's a journey that is just so friggin' worth it. Don't get me wrong, be some bumps in the road, but still worth it. Okay, so another one, health. This was something that was massive, and I didn't realize that so much of my time and energy and resources seemed limited because I wasn't prioritizing my health. And at 2 months of age, I had eczema. It went on to asthma, allergies, bronchitis, chronic sinusitis. I mean, the list is ridiculous of how many ailments and chronic illnesses I kind of had. And I was running on E all the time. I didn't know what a full night's sleep was. I just never had it. So I didn't know that that even existed. I didn't know what it felt like to have a healthy gut. I didn't know what it was like to have healthy skin. I didn't know what it was like to live life without a whack load of meds. Had no idea. I was on a pill a day for asthma. I had steroid puffers, steroid nasal sprays, bronchial dilators, steroid creams for my skin. And I mean, just constantly other things, having to battle issues because I was like just a train wreck. I was way overweight, felt like crap. My head was just like busy, busy, busy. I was irritable all the time. And it's not a pretty picture. Like it really isn't. And it's funny now, hindsight's 2020, right? I can tell you it's so worth it to figure this stuff out, but it started with me having to take control of my health. And, I had put it in the hands of Western medicine for so, so long, and it had totally led me astray, but I didn't know any better. And when you don't know better, you keep doing the same thing. And they call that the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing, but expecting different results. It doesn't happen that way, right? And at some point, I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And they say we change for one of two reasons: desperation or inspiration. I wish I could say that I was smart enough to do it through inspiration. I hope you are. But it was desperation for me. I had got to the point where I finally had a reaction to a salad in my house because my husband had cut the lettuce on a cutting board where he had peeled raw carrots. And the juice from the raw carrot, when I ate the lettuce, my throat started to swell. It started to impact my ability to breathe, and I was panicking. I thought I could rip the tubes out of my ears. I just was like losing it. And I was in my home without an EpiPen or any meds that could have navigated through that situation. And I'm about 15 minutes from, 15, 20 minutes from a hospital. So, or even an ambulance would have to drive, this was all downhill. And I felt desperate in that moment because I remember years and years of having asthma attacks, but you feel like you're going to come out the other end usually. At least I did. Everybody's experience with asthma is different because everybody's situation's different. But I really had to just I had to take control because I gave Western medicine one more chance. I went and I did the whole gamut of allergy tests again. And then, and I gave a very interesting piece. I've been in healthcare at this point for quite some time. I know how to articulate exactly how I'm feeling, what triggered it, all that kind of stuff. And I told exactly my signs and symptoms. And I said one interesting piece of information that really saddened me to think that Western medicine really dismissed some of the things that I said. So the thing that I said was that I can eat a ton of these raw fruits and vegetables that I was saying I had issues with. I could eat them cooked, but I couldn't eat them raw. And then that never went any further with regards to the doctors and the specialists that I was dealing with. And so he did the allergy test and he's just like, yeah, no, there's no signs of any reaction or anything like that. And I was just like, I am so done with this racket. And I got a prescription for an EpiPen and I left. And I ended up going to a naturopath and completely changed the trajectory of my health, not because of the naturopath's help, but that helped me sort of figure out what things were actually bothering me. And she said one interesting thing that just woke me up. Again, I had no idea. I had no idea that the serums that the Western medicine doctors were testing me with went through a cook phase. And she said, none of those serums would have been accurate for anything that would be raw. So if you can eat them cooked, but not raw, she said it would have been just as well if they prick a hole and rub a raw apple, and then you might actually show an accurate response. I was so disappointed to think that that's how it is. But me resisting how it is was never going to change it. That just is what it is. And I needed to be my own best advocate when it came to my health, and I decided to take it into my own hands. Now, I just want to say that I knew that, if I was going to use a naturopath for all of my resource, right, to be the resource for this to happen for me, it would have cost me a ton of money, right, and appointments and time and waiting to ask those questions. Instead, I really took the lead on all of it. And I decided to make a change one thing at a time. And I took dairy out of my diet, funny enough. And within 1 month, I had no asthma, no allergies, none, no chronic sinusitis, no postnasal drip, none of it, off all those meds. And I'm just like, well, obviously, there's something to this. And then I took gluten out of my diet. Those were the two top culprits that weren't working for me personally. And again, this is not necessarily true for everybody, but this is my journey. And so with regards to gluten, I took that out. In 2 weeks, my eczema was completely gone. I don't even think I ever had asthma. I've been diagnosed with that, and that would be on my record somewhere, which is really unfortunate, but I don't actually think I have those issues. And here I am, I didn't even know sleep could happen, but now I can breathe. Now I'm not so irritated and jacked up on all these steroid meds and stuff that just had me feeling completely rattled. It has been a game changer. I think anybody could say, I'm close to 15 years that I have not been on those meds. that's a game changer in itself, right? I'm actually running my own ship rather than having these meds run me. Um, and I know how to navigate when I do choose to have dairy or I do choose to have gluten. I know how to navigate that to come out the other side and to actually allow my skin to heal and all that kind of stuff. And like, incredible. So I don't know everything, not even going to try. I'm wicked passionate about investing in yourself and self-care and learning how to navigate life really well. Because I think at the end of the day, we're all doing the best we can with what we have to work with. And what I want to do is help give you some tools and maybe some ideas, some possible simple solutions that might be able to help you navigate your life a little better. Because I know we just want to be happier, right? We don't want to have as much stress. We want to, I think oftentimes being more resilient and mentally tough and more equipped for life, right? I mean, it really does matter because I'm a huge believer that life happens, right? And being prepared for impact is super important. And I'll just tell you one last little story. Because being prepared for impact is something that this business ended up giving me. And I would never have believed that it would have that kind of benefit, but it did. And, I can't help but tell people that there's options. This isn't necessarily the right option for everybody, but this is definitely an option worthy of looking at, or at least getting curious about and learning more about your options because, life's going to happen. So basically, long story short, I'll try and keep it short. I was in this office. I'm sitting in this direction. The phone rings. It's over here. Back in the day of a landline. This was only 5 years ago, but I hadn't got rid of my landline yet. And I pick up the phone. It's my mom. And the C word changed everything. She had just been diagnosed with cancer. No cancer history in our family. Nobody's sitting here waiting for that diagnosis. But guess what? That's what we got. And as my mom is telling me what's kind of going on and what she was, what she's just learned, I don't know, you kind of go into another space and I'm trying to listen to what she's saying. And then, I'm recognizing like everything that I thought mattered all of a sudden doesn't quite matter, right? Like it's funny how, when life happens, we have an opportunity to sort of shake things out and say, what really matters? Where do I want to be right now? I could say where I wanted to be. I wanted to be over there. She lives at the time an hour and a half away from me. And I wanted to be there. And I wanted to be there for the whole thing. And what's so interesting is because I built this business at a time when I didn't need it, it was there for me when I did. And pretty cool to think that I was able to be there the whole time. My mom had cancer and passed away. The journey was about 7 months. And between me being there in the beginning and the very end, she came here for everything in the middle. She was off her feet in no time. Mental capacity because of medications and that kind of thing was gone in no time. And it was full on 24/7 care. And I'm not a nurse. I can do that stuff. For a loved one, 24/7, you are on. And I mean, you are on and there's no off. Because when you're off, you're not off. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot, still a lot. And it would be after she passed away, and I was taking care of her husband as well. My dad passed away almost 26 years ago, and my mom had remarried, and he had early Alzheimer's at the time, and he was my responsibility as well because, I was taking care of mom, I was taking care of him. And it was a lot. I'll just say that. And again, there's a much longer story here, but for what it is. At the end, it was shortly thereafter that I started to kind of go downhill, and I called it at the time like this really thick fog of grief. That's what I kind of said it was. And then it would be much later down the road, I'd be having a conversation with someone and they were like, that's burnout. And I had never, I was familiar with burnout, but I had never really thought of myself that way. And yet when you really go and you look it up and find out, well, what does that really look like? And what's the symptomology of that? And yeah, I was burnt out. And what I recognize is I'm so grateful that I went into that situation. When that phone rang, I was somebody who was taking great care of myself. And I had a lot of things going really, really well. If I was to do that wheel of life and rate myself, not perfect, but I can tell you that wheel was very balanced and feeling really, really good. I can't imagine where I would be had that not been like that. But during that time, I was completely overwhelmed, totally exhausted, um, over my head half the time, because, this was just navigating a whole new world, learning about cancer and the type of cancer and the treatments and all of that, navigating the healthcare systems, and which is just so much fun in itself. Not. Anyway, I didn't take care of myself during that time. And this is only 7 months that I literally, somewhere between eating a bag of bread, which would completely throw me off in so many ways, let alone the gluten and all that kind of stuff, but it's just no nutrition. And anyway, I didn't take care of myself for those 7 months. And so I would end up in this really, really funky place where literally my husband could go to work. I could be sitting in the reclining chair or on the couch. I could be wearing the same thing, sitting in the same place when he would come home from work. I was just flatlined. A lot of things I was passionate about, I was no longer passionate about. Like, it was crazy where I went. And again, I know better logically, when people say, oh, I know exactly what to do, but I wasn't doing any of it. So nothing was changing. And I want you to know that I think I had to be there for a while, right? Because it was going to be a couple years before I would come out the other side. And funny enough, it was a clean eating program that started to bring me out. That I decided with my team, we were going to do this 30-day clean eating challenge. And it was in those 30 days that I feel like the curtain got pulled back. I wasn't better yet by any stretch of the imagination. I was not completely ready to come out of that fog of grief and all that kind of stuff. But I will say that I had a glimpse of the other side. I was feeling better. I had more energy, all that kind of stuff. And I chose to use some of that energy towards sort of really diving more into self-care. And what I learned at the end was I could do all the self-care and pouring in and eating clean and doing all this kind of stuff that I wanted to do. All those things were necessary too. But one thing that I had to really do for the first time in my life was be kind to myself, that it was okay to not be okay for a little while. And it was a little while that I had those conversations with myself, but I did get to the place where I believed it. But I had to start not believing it and then saying it, and then continuing to say it, and then also backing that up by other resources of, what's the role of being kind to yourself and being okay with not being okay for a little while, but knowing that all things come to an end, right? This too shall pass. There's different ways we say that, but at the end of the day, I came out the other side stronger than ever. I mean, more aware of where I can go and come back from. This has made me so much stronger and so much more passionate about self-care. You have no idea. Hence why we're having this conversation right now. And I don't have all the answers for you. Sometimes I don't have the answers for me. This is literally a work in progress, but I hope that we can, start this dialogue. And I hope that you really, if there's an area in your life that you want to expand, I'd love it if you dive into that. I know I do Live Well Happy Hours in my group. And like this past week, we did healthy boundaries. It's not about having all the answers. It's about having the conversation, starting to sort of expand our thoughts of what that is and how that plays in our life and how we can implement or learn new tools or put those tools in our toolbox and apply them in our life to create the life we want. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with you. Just, why listen to me? Because I have been there and back a million times in a million different places. I'm going to do it again and again and again until I'm in the ground. And I'm just so committed to this work. And I have a ton of tools in my toolbox. I don't have maybe all of them, but I am willing to find more. And, I'm somebody who I don't just see problems. As soon as I hear a problem, I'm the person that cannot control myself. I'm go into solution mode right away. Again, I might not have the solution right away, but I go into that solution oriented mode where I'm just like, I'm looking, I'm curious, I want to learn about it. And the more I learn about it, the more inclined I am to find the solution on the other end. So I hope I can help you guys navigate whatever it is that you're looking for in your life. And I know I'm going to do another little video that's going to explain some simple solutions that can help support you on your journey as you're figuring out what it is that maybe you really do want. So anyway, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. We're just so grateful to be in this conversation, and I hope that this added some value to you guys as well. Take care and have a fantastic day.